When all hope was lost, we were saved by the glorious power of Spreadsheets. Oh god, that actually burns my eyes. Let's just put on some welding goggles. Yeah, that's better. Oh, hey there. I'm Gael. I handle all of the audio for our projects at Sunscorch Studios, and I'm also responsible for these spreadsheets. Now, I'll admit, this may not be as appealing as breathtaking artwork or immersive sounds and music, but in our games, all the subtitles you see and all the speech you hear would not be feasible without what's before you. It's the fuel powering our custom dialogue system, Accessalog. Now, you might be wondering,
aren't you guys using Unreal Engine? The thing is over 20 years old. Why bother wasting time to make a custom solution? Surely it has a dialogue system.
Well, my friend, that's just not the Unreal way. Sure, you can play audio files and display subtitle text, but that's it. For a proper dialogue system, you need to be able to cue individual voice lines as well as conversations between multiple characters. Then, when the player can pick between different choices, you need all of those options to display as a group. And what happens when something interrupts the conversation?
Stop! What are you doing?
Well, you need to resume where you left off. Now, all of what I mentioned is available as third-party marketplace extensions for Unreal, but the big issue for us was that they all require you to edit the dialogue within the engine, which complicates things because not everybody on the team, such as the writers, has access to the engine. Which brings us back to our glorious grid-based friend here. On a spreadsheet, everything we need for the dialogue and UI text is all contained within this single document for the whole project, so team members who work in the relevant departments can easily review or edit it.
If you ever make your own games, be sure to structure everything in a single spreadsheet. Splitting them into multiple separate ones will only cause you agony in order to keep them in parity with each other's columns and features.
The other major benefit to being a freak in the sheets is to create tools we can leverage to help us save time and reduce manual error. Let's take a look at some of those. A super useful thing is the various columns which are automatically populated. Here, for example, we have to specify the name of the character speaking so that it displays in the subtitle. In the characters sheet, we define all of them here, and then we have a shorthand for the audio file names. So that way, any matching shorthands here fetch the corresponding full name that we defined, and then the entire column gets filled with the correct names. Which for thousands of rows is just a bit helpful. Another useful automatic one is for what we call reactions, which are dynamic voice lines that can trigger in response to gameplay events. For these, they're grouped into different categories, and it's important that we record and implement the voice lines with several different variants and takes to avoid the same single one from retriggering multiple times back to back without change in nuance. We still have to manually define those categories and takes in the audio file names, but once in the spreadsheet, it automatically extracts just the category, so that way when this ID is triggered in-game, it will randomly pick one of those variants and takes. To easily visually differentiate the columns, the ones with the emojis are the ones that we have to fill out manually, and everything else is handled automatically. Having so many rows can be overwhelming to navigate, so we have in the dashboard a table of contents that shows us all the different sections of the project, and we can easily click on them to jump right there. And if we add any new sections, then they'll appear automatically. But anyways, we also have the amount of words fetched for each section, which is useful to estimate how much it's going to cost us to translate through a professional localization studio. Speaking of translations, we have an automatic tool which uses Google Translate. We won't use these in the final game. They're mainly useful to gauge how much text space a language might take up, because the UI team has to be mindful of that when they're designing dimensions to ensure that any translation will be able to comfortably fit within the bounds without breaking anything. Then when we do receive the official translations, we can't just easily bulk copy-paste them. Remember how I said we have different variants and takes? Well, those generally all have the same subtitle or meaning, so it would be expensively redundant to pay for all of them. Thus, we only provide a single entry for the translations, and the spreadsheets they give us back are not structured the same. That means that unless we want to copy the translations by hand for thousands of cells, we need a tool that can import and align them to the correct position, as you see here. Nice. But now what about all those variants and takes that don't have a translation? For that, we'll use this tool to detect all rows that share the same base name and automatically copy the translations into the respective empty cells. Having dozens of columns and thousands of rows is a lot for a small team like ours to ensure that there are no issues, so we need tools to help us identify problematic needles in the haystack. That's why we made the Validate My Shit utility, which allows us to generate reports, and if they succeed, it gives us peace of mind, and if they fail, it helps us pinpoint the elements that we need to fix. When dialogue is in its formative stages, we test it in-game before committing to recording the voice actors. That way, if we decide to change story or gameplay elements, we can tweak dialogue and test again without wasting time and money redoing the whole process that goes into getting voice acting in-game. For this, we have a tool that converts subtitles into text-to-speech audio files, automatically sorting them nicely into their respective sections. By default, it just sounds like regular speech.
That's right. Turn around.
But in order to get a better sense of pacing, and also for characters who will have audio effects in their final voices, we can set properties in the text-to-speech engine.
That's right. Turn around. Rogue gladiator identified. Engaging. You can call me Spartacus Meatbag.
The last thing I'll show you is this feature we can use to apply real-time audio effects in-game. This allows us to both simplify our lives and save on disk space, since we only have to render and manage one set of audio files rather than a bunch of separate versions with audio effects baked into them. This way we can easily have voice lines that are either normal,
Can you hear me? Dr. Edwards here.
or coming from a radio comms call,
Hello? Is this thing on?
or a PA loudspeaker.
Just shut the fuck up!
Right. Sorry, Edwards. Alright, I've gone on for long enough. I hope you enjoyed this technical deep dive into one of the less glamorous, but nonetheless absolutely essential parts of our studio's process. Thank you so much to all of you for your support. Now normally I'm supposed to say your survival is unlikely, but we actually care about you, so please take care. We're looking forward to sharing more about Negative Atmosphere's development in the near future. Until next time. Next time.